So given this is the inaugural board meeting for the new term of the board, I will be chairing this first part of the meeting, because of course right now we don't officially have a chair. So calling the meeting to order at 4:30. So just some points of order before we start. This is not a regular board meeting, this is the inaugural meeting for the new term for 2016-17. So there is not the standard reports as there would be in a typical regular meeting, nor do we have a structured question and answer period. So I'll start off with the, oh, and just by the way, this meeting is actually an obligation under Section 688 of the Local Government Act, so we were required to have an inaugural meeting of the board within 30 days after our annual general meeting, so this has been duly convened as such. So the first item of business on the agenda is the oaths of office for the two new trustees that have joined the board. Those two gentlemen have their oaths of office in front of me. It's the first document on those packages I've provided you. So if I'm in, Peter, can I have you stand and read your oath of office?
I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially, to the best of my knowledge and ability, execute the powers, duties, and functions of my office. As a trustee, and by virtue of my office, I understand that I will be entrusted with confidential information concerning the affairs of the Improvement District. I also understand that I am obligated to maintain such information in confidence and not to use it for personal gain or advantage. I accept that as a trustee I am obligated to duties of good faith, loyalty, and honesty to the Improvement District, and I am obligated to act in the best interests of the Improvement District at all times. I have read and agree to comply with all Improvement District bylaws, policies, and directives.
Okay, I, Glenn Lawson, have been elected to the position of trustee.
Can you speak up, please?
Okay, I, Glenn Lawson, have been elected to the position of trustee for the Union Bay Improvement District. I hereby swear and confirm that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially, to the best of my knowledge and ability, execute the powers, duties, and functions of my office. As a trustee, and by virtue of my office, I understand that I will be entrusted with confidential information concerning the affairs of the Improvement District. I also understand that I am obligated to maintain such information in confidence and not to use it for personal gain or advantage. I accept that as a trustee, I am obligated to duties of good faith, loyalty, and honesty to the Improvement District, and I am obligated to act in the best interest of the Improvement District at all times. I have read and agreed to comply with all Improvement District bylaws, policies, and directives. Signed, it's the 13th of April, 2016.
Great. Thank you. So if I could get you to both sign that before you leave today, and I'll retain copies of those on file. That'd be great. Thank you. Okay. So next item for business is appointment of board chair. So as I stated at the end of every term, the board is temporarily dissolved, and then when it reconvenes, the board amongst itself has to select a person to act as its chair. That chair does retain a vote as a member of the board, and so I will put it to the table for nominations for the position of chair.
I'll propose Carol be chair. She has the experience and knowledge to carry it.
I second that.
Okay. I will ask any further nominations. And the third and final time, any further nominations? Then hearing none, congratulate Carol on being selected as chair. Do you accept? For the minutes, do you accept?
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. Then I will duly turn the meeting over to you, Carol.
Okay. The next item of business is to talk about the kinds of committees that we think that we need for the coming year. This is based on priorities of the board, things that we think that we need to focus on, issues that we believe we need to have public input on through our committees, and at the same time being mindful of not overwhelming Kevin with so many meetings that he doesn't have enough time to do all the other things that he needs to do. Before the election, the previous board did have some discussion about the kinds of committees that we thought we needed. And that's subject to, of course, ratification today if we so decide. Last year we had 4 committees. We had a fire services committee, and that committee was charged with the task of completing the 5-year review of the fire department and getting started on implementing the recommendations out of that review. The second committee that we had was a finance and capital planning committee, and that committee met infrequently and tended to be more a review by the trustee who was in charge of that, Bruce, with the administrator primarily going over the financial statements every month. Any kinds of financial issues that came up, like the annual financial planning meeting, dealing with the audit, those kinds of issues were all dealt with by the entire board as a whole. The third committee that we had was the Fire Hall Working Group, which reported to the Fire Services Committee. That group was for a 2-year term, even though it has to be renewed annually, with the task of looking at moving forward with the construction of a new fire hall. And the fourth committee that we had was the Public Works Committee that dealt with a whole host of water-related issues, from interaction with island timberlands, to watershed planning, to dealing with the day-to-day operations of the water system, to engineering for a new water treatment plant. So because of the Fire Hall Working Group and the big chunk of work that that group has taken on, the former board felt that there was probably not much need for a fire services committee. The only issue that would come up at a fire services committee would be something that the fire chief may bring forward through the fire chief's monthly report. And that could certainly be dealt with at the board just as easily as anything else. The second committee that we've questioned whether we need is the finance committee. Again, because the entire board receives all of the financial information and deals with any kind of unusual financial issues. So we were proposing that we do away with the finance committee and the fire services committee for this next term. The one thing that we did talk about that may need a new committee, or resurrecting a previous committee, is that we have also talked about doing a considerable amount of policy work relating to personnel. So policy work and job description reviews. So in the past, we did have a policy committee that dealt with all of the board policies that were developed. Okay. So, knowing that not many people like policy work, because It's tedious, it's picky, and takes a fair amount of coordination. You may want to leave that policy stuff to Kevin and I to bring forward as a group, again, to the board to deal with as a group. I do think that we need a public works committee because we continue to have a number of issues regarding public works. And we do need the fire hall working group committee to complete its second term. So, having kind of said all that, I'll throw it out to you for discussion. And where do you think you'd like to go with that?
Well, let's not attract any more work than we have to. Let's do what we have to. Do the basics. Because as you say, Kevin's
Can you
time-
speak up, please, Alan?
Yes, sure. As you say, Kevin's time is kind of precious, and you can't inundate him with running meetings and minutes and everything that goes along. So, I agree with you. We're basically looking at manning 2 committees plus another half committee. Right?
The half committee being
Policy.
the policy.
Yes. Sorry, Carolyn. Not being diminutive,
Yeah.
but yeah. So from that perspective, the fire committee that Anne has run, I would suggest that she continues to run that.
I don't need to be nominated for a term because I'm the first year, my 2-year term, right? So
Okay.
we're just talking about carrying on that committee.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, if I may, what will change if that's the way we decide to go is rather than, we would have to modify the terms of reference for the working group slightly so that rather than reporting to a committee, which would then report to the board, we would have it report directly to the board.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. But I agree with Alan that Kevin has taken on an extraordinary amount of work with all the committee minutes, etc. And I've noticed that it just seems to be sort of, increasing more and more. So I think that it's not necessary to have the 2 committees you discussed. And, but I would like to recommend Alan to continue to chair the Public Works Committee.
So before we get into some motions about that, Peter and Glenn, do you have thoughts, or is this too early in the game?
No, I agree. We get a monthly financial statement anyway. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
And the fact that Fire Services Committee, probably somewhat redundant, I guess. Sure, I'm okay with that too.
Yeah, I feel the same, and whatever board you need help with, I can go to either one actually, whatever, if Alan needs assistance or Ann, I would be willing to do either one.
Same with me.
Okay, just to talk a little bit about the bylaw committee. If you and Kevin are willing to take that on,
Policy committee.
or bylaws, policies, yeah. That would be, because I remember when we first got on board, that was a very, very onerous committee for a couple of years, so 5 years ago, so.
I've got most of the personnel policies already drafted.
Have you?
I
Okay.
just have to get Kevin to agree before we bring them forward.
So if that's okay with everybody else, I think that we should go that route.
Okay. So can we then have a motion regarding the fire hall working group?
I would, the motion that Carol, Anne be the person to lead that as chair.
So to renew your second,
Okay.
your 2-year
Subject
term,
to-
okay?
To
Second.
redoing the
Yeah.
terms of reference, yeah. Okay.
And Peter,
I'll second.
second it. Okay. Any more discussion about it? Are you ready to vote? Okay, all in favor? Carried. Okay. And the Public Works Committee.
Okay, I'd like to nominate Alan to continue as chair of the committee for the next year.
I second
Okay, Glenn's gonna second it. Okay, all in favor? Carried. So the way that we have set up the committees is the terms of reference call for up to 4 volunteers from the community for each of those committees. And it would be up to, well, Anne, you've already got your people in
My
place.
people are all up there for the 2 years. So.
Right, but for Alan, it would be up to you then to nominate those 4 community representatives that have come forward, okay? Any of the trustees are welcome to attend any of the committees.
And provide input.
But not the working group committee.
No, not the working group.
Right.
Right, because that's a working group, it's
Yeah.
not a committee.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But the public works.
Yes.
Works committee, yes.
yeah. And I know that all of us found it very helpful to attend those committee meetings in terms of learning what the issues are, because that's where most of the back and forth discussion occurs. It doesn't happen at the board meeting that same way.
it. So we'll have a list of those meetings then, or we'll,
Yeah, you get notice of them.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
Kevin uses, that's a summary list for the next 3 months of the meetings that are going to go on.
And they're always published on our website, too, on the website, yeah.
okay.
Okay.
No?
Okay. Before we get into item number 5, as chair, I feel compelled to say something. And it's about the annual general meeting. The legal duty of the board is to protect the health and safety and privacy of its employees. We have a legal obligation to do that. 2 things happened at the AGM that I found quite alarming. One was that a resident of Union Bay approached our administrator and threatened to take him outside and beat him up, and besides that, he was going to lose his job. I just want to say that if we knew who that person was, the police would have been notified. And I would like that recorded in the minutes.
Could you repeat that again? I didn't hear all of it.
Someone threatened to take our administrator outside of the out of the hall at the AGM and beat him up and told him that he was going to be fired. So, and unfortunately, neither Kevin nor anyone else seems to know who that individual was.
Was it a man or a woman?
Yes, a man, yes. The other thing that happened at the AGM that I think was very inappropriate was the discussion about the fire chief. I understand that there may be concerns that individual people may have about any of our staff, but the appropriate way to respond to those concerns is to come directly to Kevin to express those concerns. It's not appropriate to slander any of our staff in public at a public meeting like that. Okay. So, if people know who these people are, they may want to pass on the message, but I think that as a board we need to take a really clear stand in terms of those 2 issues. That's my speech. I'm done. Okay. The other issue that we have to deal with today is signing authority. And signing authority involves approving expenditures for UBID, so that involves coming down to the office every couple of weeks for check runs and signing checks. And every single expenditure of the improvement district also has to be reviewed by a trustee. So in the past, the finance committee chair has taken the great bulk of that task on. However, that is a responsibility of anyone that has signing authority. In the past year, the entire board and the administrator had signing authority, and it was any two of those people. So then the administrator could call any of us if signatures were needed. So we need a motion, don't we?
Yes, because what I need to be able to present to the bank is the evidence of the board to make the two signing authority removals and to have the new trustees on as signing authorities. And then I will get that arranged at the bank, and then I will call everyone when that stuff's ready, and then you just have to go into the bank and sign.
Okay. Ready, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. So, would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it for you.
Okay, so the motion is that all of us and the administrator, any two, and to remove the other two people from the list. Right? Okay. Okay. All in favor? Okay. Carried. Okay, that's the inaugural meeting, and this is usually the stuff that we do shortly after the AGM, but it didn't happen this time, so thank you all for coming. We are adjourned.